Hello, my friends, and welcome. It's nice to be with you again. Wanted to talk about something that we've touched on in the past, but it's a really important point and an important kind of idea relative to this transition to a new world and a new human. I don't need to tell you that we're living in this period of time where everything that we essentially almost everything that we have traditionally and throughout our lives used to establish kind of credibility and security and other such things is all up for grabs. Everybody's lying about all of the kinds of things. They're manipulating, they're doing deep fakes and other kinds of technological stuff, and everything is, it's hard to know for sure what is real at all. And in the face of all of that, what we're trying to do is kind of a move from one place in the human evolutionary kind of track up to another one that, by definition is a really different place, and it's that humans operate in a really different way. The issue at hand is that it's very hard to confront the world, confront everyday life without being dependent upon, whether it's explicit or not, but being dependent upon the presumptions that we've always had in the past to tell us what's real and what isn't real. And we carry that baggage, if you will, with us. It's not baggage so much as it's embedded in, it's woven into the essence of who we are. We just presume these kinds of things are real and important and substantive, and therefore we build our sense of security around them. And that works if you don't get a whole lot of changes and nobody's screwing around with you and trying to mess with the essence of reality as we experience it. But the problem is deeper than that, which compounds the issue at hand. Because on one hand, like I say, you've got rapidly increasing technologies that absolutely call into question, or at least it ought to call into question, everything that you see that is mediated by the media or the government or any outside source that isn't right in front of you that you can presumably, that you can see. Everything can be manipulated. Everything can be shaped. And so much so that they're into places where you can do 3D projections and it looks like absolutely like it's real. And the military has got capabilities now that they made public that they can make themselves invisible. They can do these masking, screening kinds of things, and so you could have a whole bunch of people out running around in a field, i.e. soldiers, headed your way, and you would never see them with your naked eye because they've got technologies and capabilities that will make it impossible for you to see them. And so it's that's just one of just an easy dozen or two of different big kind of technological capabilities that in this conventional space calls into question what is real and what isn't real. But the problem is bigger than that. It's more because in the, if you will, the unconventional space, in this broader spectrum of the reality that we live in. I mean, this is all, you got to remember that we operate in about a sliver of all of the electromagnetic spectrum that we can see, and there's a smaller spectrum that we can hear, and yet there's all kinds of stuff that's running around out in that space, not least of which are other entities that coexist in this world, in this 3D world with us, that we're not generally aware of. The problem is even bigger. But what I'm trying to say is that the problem is even more acute than that, or the issue is more acute than that. And that is that at the most basic level, we are all electric. At the atomic level, all of the forces and such that keep an atom together and then a molecule, and as you work your way up, are all electric and magnetic forces. So if you understand that, then you understand that if it's electric and magnetic and stuff, it can be engineered, it can be hacked, it can be manipulated. If you kind of project that into the space where, into this visual spectrum and the operation, the biology of the electrobiology of your eyes, what you're doing is that you are taking some kind of an image and you're converting it into electrical signals, and those electrical signals are then being communicated, transferred to areas in your brain that then convert those signals into what supposedly you see. Now, all of us take that for granted, and very few think about what that is. But I have been in a couple of situations where it becomes very clear that we shouldn't take it for granted. For instance, I met this guy who gave a presentation up at a museum in Baltimore. He's in Alaska. He was in a party, and he was coming out of the party, and there were a bunch of drunks out there, and they tried to beat him up, and they knocked him down, and he hit his head on a curb, on a concrete curb, and it reset his brain in a new way. And so he saw everything in terms of kind of a wireframe kind of indication. What that means is that when you try to do three-dimensional objects in a CAD program, a computer-aided design program, that the mechanism by which the software has been designed to be able to represent three-dimensional objects is that they build a grid, two crossing kind of matrices. They make the grid very, very tight. Then they define and describe the situation in each one of the grid squares. That then, in the aggregate, they do integration, right? Calculus. They do integration, and that then starts to give you the three-dimensional kind of compound curves and shapes and other kinds of things. But at the very basic level is that what you have is a grid. As it turns out, the grid is so small that we can't see it and so on. But this guy, when he hit his head, he could see the grid. He could see it in everything. He could, everywhere he looked, he could see the underlying kind of structural, the framework underneath that was underneath all of the so-called reality that we all kind of integrate in our minds, or however the software in our brain works. And it was fascinating. I tried to, in fact, go up to Alaska and see him and talk to him about it, because what he was saying was that there was a different layer of reality that was existent, that most of us, almost all of us, could not see, but it was the underlying kind of supporting structure for the things that became projected into this 3D reality. Now, that's pretty interesting, because number one, what it suggests is that there is a program, if you will, think AI or simulation. There is a program underneath this whole thing that converts these thoughts and conscious kind of configurations that we have And through some unknown way, I mean, some people like Penny Kelly will think she understands how this works. But in any case, in general, we don't understand. But anyway, it generates the reality that we experience based upon some underlying solid geometric principles, essentially. Well, that's so if you think about that a little bit, you say, well, wait a second. I mean, all of that can be act. All of that can be, I mean, it is engineered, if that's the way it works. It is, by this description at least, engineered in order to produce these kinds of imagery. There is no absolute reality. That is to say, there is this contrived set of graphics and other things that show up in our brain through the electrochemical kind of connections and the operation of our brain that can be manipulated, can be changed. You could make anything happen. You could shape shift another. So if you knew how to do this thing. So now you're starting to see the inkling, the early kind of indicators of the components, of the operations of how this reality, this context works. And you can see that it is not absolute reality in any terms. It is all intermediated by electrochemical signals and other kinds of software and whatever it turns out to be. And it is very much like designing and producing a video game. If you have a very high definition video game that it looks like reality to all the rest of us, it is all based upon, you know, a wireframe kind of concepts about how you get shapes and shadows and highlights and all of these kinds of things that we see and identify as being real are all designable, executable outside of our brain, because they're doing it, right? They're doing it now in video games. There's some things that are so realistic it's almost impossible. I mean, you've seen them in some of James Cameron's movie. Remember the Avatar movie? You could, I used to have a slide I put in my speeches that I gave every day, and it was just full screen headshot of this alien woman, or this avatar woman, and you could not tell that was not real. And that's just movie kind of stuff, and that's 20 years or 30, 25 years ago or something like that. And if you take that level of technological capability and you run it out 1,000 years at the rate at which technology is changing now, 5,000 years, 500,000 years, you're into a space where it's almost obvious that the kinds of things that we call reality and the images that we see and the context and so on could easily be generated, and it could be a product of a very, very obviously very complex, but computer, but you can do seemingly photographs of outdoor natural settings with and maybe even videos with the wind is blowing and all of the grass and the trees and the leaves are moving and everything, and it is so real you cannot tell the difference. And that's now here on Earth. And all I'm saying is, you know, do 1,000 years in the future at the rate of change in which technology is going, and there's all kinds of crazy things that you can do that in terms of duplicating what we think of as life that would be driven by some external source, some programmer, artificial intelligence, whatever it turns out to be. And what all of that says, to me at least, is that as we go into this future of great change, and where in just kind of conventional terms, the press and the media and the government and who all knows else, the World Economic Forum, they're all trying their best and they're using all the tools that they have to manipulate and shape the narrative to make you think that reality is something different than what it actually is. And they're doing that to most of the people on the planet. I mean, if you watch television on a regular basis, you are guaranteed consumed by these attempts to change and manipulate and engineer what you think reality is. And if you then run that out 500 years or 1,000 years or something like that, the notion that you could duplicate what we think of as reality in artificial or synthetic kind of terms is just obvious. It's self-evident. Fold that into, for instance, robotic technology, again, exponential increase in robotic technology, and merge the two of those kinds of things together, and don't tell me that there's in some place 500 or 1,000 or 10,000 years from now when you've got robots that are human in every way that we can think of them being human, and just like in some of the science fiction films. Now, what that all means in terms of us trying to rise to this occasion and become these new human and kind of activate the powerful and essential capabilities that we have within all of us, is that there is a real need. It's a central kind of issue in this whole process, is that you have to begin to open yourself up all the time to the possibility that things are not what they seem to be, because there are all these efforts, increasingly sophisticated and effective efforts, to do just that, to make you think that reality is different from what it absolutely is. And so there's a really important kind of idea in here, and that is that you cannot move into this new space, this new human space, without being very subjective, intrinsically, constantly subjective about what you are taking in from all of our senses. There needs to be this constant questioning that goes on that says, is that real or is that not real? Are they messing with me or not? What are the underlying kind of objectives that that's trying to be communicated here, which would give me an indication of whether it is in fact, quote, real or not real. I've compressed this this little description into a kind of a single isolated layer that is not fully representational of the broader kind of reality, because if you go off into Hermetic principle land and start with the notion that all is mental, that in and of itself then says there is no objective physical reality in the terms that we understand and we presume. And I don't want to go quite that far afield right here. But that tells you, if you're aware of that and you believe that and it seems to resonate with you, it tells you that even if we're sitting here talking about two giant steps out into this future and trying to make sense of what this is all around, seemingly all around us all the time, that's a handful to do and is an extraordinary kind of big step on the way to kind of activating and the intrinsic capabilities that have been suppressed within us, in our DNA and other kinds of stuff. But the issue is bigger than that, and it gets into all is mental, then wow, then you can kind of make up anything that you want, and that's what you get. That, in fact, is what Robert Anton Wilson figured out. Robert Anton Wilson was this extraordinary writer and thinker who took 3 years of his life, and 1 year he dedicated it all to exploration of what reality really was, and used drugs as the basis for doing that. And then he shifted and did a year where he did all kinds of occult kind of things with all of the symbolism and the ceremonies and the other kind of stuff like that. Went out and got involved with what's his name that was in Scotland or something, that kind of the modern father of a lot of this stuff. And then he took another year, I think, and it was all about kind of the new agey kind of stuff, and he ran out to the end of the thing. Marvelous book that he's written, and he gets to the end and he says, you want to know what it is, how it works? It's anything you want it to be. Reality is anything you want it to be. And he has experienced and been able to kind of stitch together from all of those kinds of very deep dive kind of experiences to say that it's all subjective, and you get what you think you're going to get. And if you are able to effectively change your mind about that kind of stuff, then you're going to get something differently. I mean, that kind of stuff just starts to pull the pins on all of the platform or the support system that we all operate on, that says that there is a real reality. I can touch it here, and and I can get hit by a car and I can die, and all that kind of stuff. That it drives you into another space. And the point today is that is an integral component, it seems to me, of this trajectory into this new world and this new human, is this understanding that this expanded awareness. I've talked about that many times. It's expanded awareness that starts to say, this reality is not what we think it is. And we're operating in a very narrow spectrum, and this says nothing about other spirits and other dimensional things that are all running around in this space at the same time. We're moving into the essential kind of track going forward is to move into a new space that is structurally and fundamentally doesn't work in the same terms that we're familiar with. That's the essence of this emergent new human. You follow me with that? That this is about becoming someone different. It's not like recoloring what's inside of the box. It's moving into a different kind of box. It's a really, really big thing. And it's out there in that space, or on the way to that space, is this notion that what you think is what you get. Your consciousness is causal, that we can really produce the reality, that we can manifest things, we can do all of this kind of stuff. Well, none of that works with an old paradigm that says that here's the physics of it and here's the chemistry, and we understand how that. No, this is a really different, big step out into a new kind of space. And that's what we all need to start to work our way into, it seems to me, is to, through different things, reading books, whatever, hallucinogenic stuff, drug trips and things are certainly helpful in expanding your mind and exposing you to reality that you never thought existed before. And so the reason why I'm talking about this today is because I have this increasing sense that the time to this new world is shorter, perhaps, than we think it might be. And that the amount of change that we need to embrace and we need to find and we need to understand is significantly different than the framework, the paradigm that we live in, such that we need to start leaning into that space. We need to start figuring out how that is. We need to move as best we can into that area, because that's the thing that's going to extract us out of this 3D world and presumably move you into a 4D world where you see things in a whole different way, where you have this expanded awareness about who you are and how this reality all works. And so it's a fascinating kind of step in that direction, because for me at least, there's an ongoing constant questioning going on all the time, saying, yeah, what is real, what isn't real, what are they trying to do, why are they, that's the way it by extension, it works its way into everything that I read from the media and everything, saying, what are they trying to do? What is behind this? Where is it going? There's this questioning that has to be a part of the process of opening up to new things. And it's so important that I thought we should chat about it for a little bit tonight. So that's we can talk about it a bit more later if you all are interested in that. So thank you so much.